On this episode of Epic Conditions, in this remote stretch of hot, arid desert, ancient sea life once swam and Jurassic giants once roamed.
Where we're standing right now would have been under the ocean about 300 million years ago. So this is before the time of the dinosaurs.
For hundreds of millions of years, powerful forces hammered out this rare, daunting spectacle.
Go out there and see the geology that's just like unbelievable.
For a lot of people, they feel like they've just come to another planet.
Today, this surreal terrain of salt and sandstone has become the most treasured destination for a new breed of exotic life: mountain biking fanatics.
It's just a huge playground, and there's like endless possibilities of what you can ride.
No other weather-forged landscape has so perfectly sparked the evolution of a sport. But no matter how far these daredevils push their boundaries, it's Mother Nature that strikes at will.
And then suddenly the thunderstorm will roll over and produce just buckets of rainfall.
That's where people die, is when unexpected things happen.
This is Moab, Utah, a geological wonderland and home to the most epic mountain biking conditions found on Earth. In the realm of outdoor thrills, mountain biking is a relatively young sport. Even as its popularity soars, there is one place that remains at the very epicenter of that expanding universe. Located in the heart of the western U.S., this rugged frontier is Moab, Utah.
Moab is one of the unique mountain biking destinations in the whole world.
Well, you know, Moab became a mecca, you know, back in the 80s, and it was, oh my God, look what you can ride your mountain bike on.
What these thrill seekers find only here are vast layers of exposed ancient sandstone that deliver an unfathomable experience when rubber meets the road.
I mean, there's very few places that have that mix of, you know, kind of that rock and the ledges and, you know, all of those things and the scenery, all that stuff kind of comes together to make the riding, you know, so epic.
What incredible forces of nature came together so perfectly to turn this high desert plateau into a mountain biker's paradise? To understand how radically the landscape has changed in Moab is to first look at the extreme and unique conditions that exist today. Joe Ramey is a meteorologist with the National Weather Service in Grand Junction, Colorado, just 1 hour's drive to the east.
Moab is a continental climate, and that means that it's far from the ocean. In the cool season, through the winter and into the spring, storms that bring precipitation to Moab come off the Pacific, but there's many mountain ranges between Moab and the Pacific. Each of those mountain ranges takes their share of the moisture, and by the time that storm gets to Moab, it's often wrung very dry. So Moab gets just the right amount to be a really beautiful desert environment.
A native of Zimbabwe, Dr. Tamsin McCormick is the executive director of Plateau Restoration, a conservation organization focusing on the area's native habitat.
The fact that we have such dry climate, hot, dry climate, leads to our sparse vegetation. So our soils are thin. They're very poor in organic matter. The thin soils, when they become disturbed, are then also easily eroded away to our bedrock surfaces.
It's these endless bedrock surfaces and the cool 70-degree temperatures in the spring and fall that lure mountain biking enthusiasts here by the thousands. As a member of the Mountain Bike Hall of Fame, Hans Ray is a pioneer of extreme riding and a true legend of the sport. For him, Moab is unsurpassed.
It's definitely rocky, and it's kind of fun because you get so much traction on those rocks, like on slick rock and stuff. It's kind of like Disneyland, like a natural skate park riding slick rock, so it's a really unique experience.
The mountain biking experience is as varied as the riders, with many different riding styles, each requiring unique skills. Cross country is a grueling ride up and down steep terrain. Downhill riding is a death-defying rush straight down a mountain at speeds approaching 40 miles per hour. Another discipline is trials, challenging riders to navigate in a spider-like fashion around natural and man-made obstacles. And then there's free riding. One of the most extreme forms where the goal is big air and there are no trails and no rules. Moab is not only an incredible thrill for the adventurous mountain biker, it's a true piece of heaven for a geologist. Tamsin McCormick calls the Moab area the world's best classroom.
The views are spectacular, and it's just a perfect place to demonstrate some of the basic geological landforms.
To Tamsin's trained eye, the unworldly rock formations that dot the landscape tell an amazing story of Moab's ancient past. Moab sits in the heart of a geological marvel called the Colorado Plateau. Covering an area of some 140,000 square miles, it reaches from the western slope of the Colorado Rockies to the Grand Canyon in Arizona. The region's unlikely path to mountain biking dominance began hundreds of millions of years ago, when much of Utah was covered by an ocean. With the Moab region intermittently submerged, this area became sort of a catch basin for sediments that piled deep over time. Eventually, the ocean retreated to the west, while cataclysmic forces were at work below the Earth's surface. Giant land masses drifted and crashed into each other, causing massive rippling effects. The Rocky Mountains heaved upward, pulling the whole Colorado Plateau up along with them, radically changing the region's climate and landscape from a swampy, wet environment with slow-moving rivers to the dry, rocky desert it is today.
This whole region has risen up from near sea level to its current elevation of about 5,000 feet above sea level.
As fate would have it, these ancient rocky surfaces seem custom-made for mountain biking adrenaline junkies. A native of Colorado, Travis Brown was a competitor in the 2000 Olympic Games in Sydney. It's the unique variety of trails that draws him to Moab.
Picking a favorite trail in Moab is pretty difficult because there are so many really super rides, and the style of riding here changes so much from one trail to another.
With names like Slick Rock and Porcupine Rim, every trail here provides a different, unparalleled experience. 4 years ago, Wendy Reynolds was a self-proclaimed couch potato living in Olympia, Washington. Then she discovered mountain biking and moved to Moab. Today, she is a nationally ranked downhill racer.
My favorite trail here is hands down Porcupine Rim. It's an excellent trail. It's a cross-country trail. Don't tell any of the downhillers I said that, but it's a great trail, and you can ride it really fast, and it definitely has very technical sections. But mostly what I love about it is the speed and the views. It's gorgeous.
Jeremy Horgan Kobelski, who lives in Boulder, Colorado, holds several national championships in cross-country riding. A member of the U.S. mountain biking team in the 2004 Olympics, he tests his daring on the sandpaper-like surface of Slick Rock.
The Slick Rock surface is kind of a double-edged sword. You know, on the one hand, sometimes you get the best traction, like it's almost like riding on a paved bike path. And then on, the other hand, if it's a tiny bit wet or if there's just a little bit of the coating of gravel on it or anything, it's, the slickest thing you could imagine. And so you kind of have to be constantly aware of kind of what the exact surface is that you're riding on, how hard you can push it, and what you're capable of.
Faced with 70-degree rock faces and flanked by 200-foot cliffs, mountain bikers pin their trust on one question: will their tires hold? Coming up, from around the world, they descend upon these rare sandstone trails to fulfill an adrenaline rush. In this harsh desert climate, sometimes it can prove fatal.
Riding in the desert can be extremely dangerous, especially in the summer. It gets very hot, easily over 100, generally over 110.
In the world of sports, there are rare places where nature's forces combine to create epic conditions. In Moab, Utah, that timescale was geologic and dramatic, taking place over hundreds of millions of years. Here, a mighty ocean ultimately gave way to this arid sandstone desert, carving out what is considered the mountain biking capital of the world.
When you think of Moab, it's definitely synonymous with mountain biking. And when anyone hears the word Moab, all over the world, that's what they think of, and it draws people from everywhere.
The rare Moab experience also has had a dramatic impact on the evolution of the mountain bike itself. No one knows this better than Gary Fisher. In this extreme sport, he's known as the father of mountain biking.
When we first started riding these bikes, we call them clunkers. We call them trashers. Clunkers and trashers more because, you just didn't care. You could trash your bike, it was all right. Later on, I started a company with my roommate, Charlie Kelly, and we needed a name for this company. So we thought of the name Mountain Bikes.
Since the late 70s, mountain bike sophistication and technology have soared to amazing heights.
Making a bicycle is not a simple equation because you really have to deal with, this thing that sits on the saddle, the rider, and all their quirks and their feelings and everything. Suspension has made a tremendous leap in the last 4 years. It's been around for 12 years on a bicycle, but only in the last 4 years has it really become really worthwhile and really worked well. The way people ride, oh my God, we would have never have imagined how people ride their bikes now, 20 years ago.
All the new advances in mountain bike design have pushed the edge of what these thrill seekers can do. And Moab offers no limit to how extreme the ride can get. Taming this landscape is one rider who many in the sport consider the guy to watch. Cameron McCall is one of the best extreme mountain bikers in the world. He is pushing the freeride movement to heights people thought were impossible.
5 years ago, there was maybe a handful, maybe just one handful of guys that could take and do a backflip. Cam McCall, young kid, incredible. He sticks it and he just smirks. It's beautiful.
This type of mountain biking, free ride, one of the coolest parts about it is you can let out all the creativity that you have. It's not sticking to the plan, trying to get from the start line to the finish line the fastest. You're free to do whatever you want.
Mountain biking is kind of that, pushing your limits and searching for your own mental and physical limits out there on the trail.
When I started riding, I was just really looking for inspiration. Like, the dude who started all this kind of creative riding before anybody else was Hans Ray.
I believe my riding is showing the people also how much fun you can have on a bike and how mountain biking is very individual and everybody can do it the way they like to do it. And that's so cool about it, is individuality.
And the stuff that he did, you can kind of trace that back to how this sport started. Just looking at a line and trying to figure out how you can ride it in your own way.
As in all extreme sports, those who really push the edge know that they are putting themselves at risk.
A lot of these moves have consequences, you cannot do them half. You cannot say, I'm going to try to jump this gap and maybe if I have luck, I make it. It's kind of do or die.
Is free riding dangerous? It's pretty dangerous. You take the occasional tumble. On my first run, I took a little bit too much speed into a ridgeline and kind of got bucked over the bars and fell off a couple cliffs. And that ended up on a couple TV shows. I'm that guy. I'm that guy in the yellow helmet who tumbled down the hill.
Over my career, 16 years, I've broke my collarbone twice.
You land on your head a lot.
I mess my shoulders up a lot. I always dislocate them.
And I broke my leg once.
I'm Stitch King. I get stitches all the time.
Bruises and scrapes and scars and scratches.
I consider that, pretty good odds.
It is a very dangerous sport. It's not for everybody to do. There's a really good reason why we wear full-face helmets and full body armor, and I look like a little football player.
In Moab, the risk of bodily injury, or worse, is not confined to individuals pushing their limits. This vast, harsh desert landscape holds its own real dangers. Kirsten Peterson is co-owner of Rim Tours, a mountain biking guiding company in Moab. With 16 years of exploring every inch of this desert, she fully knows what can happen out there to the unsuspecting.
Coming to the desert can be very dangerous, and you know, it's really, I think it is that way for people that come in unprepared.
Moab's the perfect example of one of those places where you could set off in shorts and a jersey and, you know, it's 70 degrees outside and you think it's hot or, you know, even warmer, and you could get, you know, caught in, you know, freezing rain or snow or any of those things out there.
The ideal times to ride are in the spring and fall, but it's in the summer months when Moab can suddenly turn from a blue sky day into a nightmare.
The weather pattern really changes during the warm season. The west flow that brings the storms in off the Pacific breaks down, everything kind of slows down, the desert heats up and creates a local low pressure area. And that's when Moab will get its most precipitation of any given month of the year.
It's at this time in Moab, from June to August, when Mother Nature is most unpredictable. Next on Epic Conditions. In the desert wilderness, sudden and violent weather can appear out of nowhere. Even the best prepared can find themselves fearful for their lives.
Weather can mean difference between cold and hot, or dead or alive.
Located on the Colorado River, Moab has become a world-class mountain bike destination. For legions of mountain biking enthusiasts, its geologically carved sandstone trails, along with temperate spring and fall temperatures and little precipitation, make for a ride like no other.
Being in Moab, riding all that slick rock and just being around, looking around in the canyons and, you know, the colors and of the rock and everything, it's just an amazing place.
With all of its surrounding beauty, it's easy to forget that this playground is ruled by nature's very unpredictable realm. In the desert, sudden changes in weather can be brutal.
So as a mountain biker, there are many weather dangers in the Moab area. First, there's the heat, the afternoon heat and certainly the summer heat. That kills people every year.
On summer mornings, temperatures typically start out at a relatively cool 70 degrees. But within a few hours, that refreshing temperature can soar well above 100.
It's so dry here, you don't really even notice sweat a lot of times, but there's constantly moisture evaporating from your skin, and it's very easy to get dehydrated.
There was a time when I was very irresponsibly riding in July in the heat in the middle of the day. I think it was like 11, and it was definitely over 100. And unfortunately, my bike broke. I was hiking out, I was very concerned. I was running out of water. That's where people die, is when unexpected things happen, and they always do.
Wendy Reynolds was lucky. Her riding partner, who had continued on unaware of what happened, came back up the trail to find her.
Luckily, I was very close to the end of the trail, but people have died here, literally been found less than a quarter mile from the road, from civilization, from help.
Another extreme natural hazard that can kill here is rain. Moab only gets 9 inches of rain each year, but it comes in torrential downpours.
One of the great ironies of the weather of Moab is that it's a very dry environment, but when it rains in Moab, it can really, really rain. And so a cyclist can be out and be parched and dry on a sunny summer day, and then suddenly the thunderstorm will roll over and produce just buckets of rainfall. Thunderstorms pack a whole variety of dangers for the mountain biker. Lightning being number one, flash floods are number two. Thunderstorms sitting in one place can produce a lot of rainfall and create strong surging water down individual canyons.
A flash flood can be very surprising. Since signs of rain may be well off in the distance, it's hard to know when a raging river is cascading down a canyon.
Seeing a flash flood is a very startling thing because you're typically in a desert environment where this dry wash that's been sitting there for maybe years, maybe even decades with little or no water in it, suddenly is churning and there's boulders rolling. And it's a very violent event and a very dangerous event.
When Epic Conditions returns, although these mountain bikers are constantly challenged by the severe desert climate of Moab, will they continue to seek out this epic landscape?
It's continually challenging, and there's always a new trail to experience and ride on.
In Moab, Utah, they come from every corner of the globe to experience thrills that can only happen here.
There's people all over starting a ride, ending a ride. If you ride a bike, you gotta come to Moab.
Moab continues to be a mecca for cycling. I think people are just attracted to the stark, harsh landscape.
This stuff is hard to deny. Go out there and see the geology that's just like unbelievable.
I couldn't live without mountain biking. It's my passion. It's what I do.
Throughout the planet, sports enthusiasts look for those truly rare and special places where nature's forces combine in explosive ways to create what can only be called epic conditions.